Welcome everyone and welcome Yossi Atia to GPJFF in Conversation. We'll talk about the film Born in Jerusalem and Still Alive. Thank you for joining us. Yossi, the film starts when Onen decides one day that he's going to do his own guided tours to tourists to tell them about the suicide bombings in Jerusalem the way he experienced it. You, Yossi, you co-wrote the script and co-directed the film with David Ofek, and you also played the lead character, Onen Matalon. I read that you actually gave tours like this. I think they were called terror tours in 2012. Can you tell us how that came to be?
I did it as a research for the film. I did a performance that called From Trauma to Fantasy in a performance art festival. And there were two kinds of tours, in Hebrew and in English. And it was very different, the two, because with Israeli, they understand everything, they know everything, and it was like a therapy tour. And with the tourists, they were very engaged and interesting in the stories. And this was the first part of the journey of the film, that I did a tour for research for the film.
So that's interesting because you got two different types of feedback, of input from the groups. What did you learn from the Israeli group, and what did you learn from the tourist groups that was interesting for you?
With the Israeli, I felt that they, like Ronen, want to talk about this experience of terror attack, but have no place to talk about it because it's something that we don't like to talk about it in the Israeli culture. And with the tourist, I see it's something that everybody in the world can connect, this experience of anxiety, of the fear of terror attack.
When you show your film in Israel, you expect a different reaction than when you show it abroad. You expect the reaction abroad to be more like the reaction of the tourists, right?
Yes, but I believe that the humor is across the country and across the cultures. That's what I want to believe. Unfortunately, because of the COVID and the coronavirus, we don't have the opportunity to go abroad and see it with audience in a theater.
To actually meet with people.
Yes, and to see if the humor is work or not working.
Okay, we'll talk about the humor in a minute because I think I find that humor in general is very culture related in general. So when we see films with Argentinian humor or Italian humor, it's very different from other humors. And this in specific is Black humor. So that's even a little bit more specific, I think, but we'll talk about it.
Okay.
The memories of the suicide bombings are very painful. I don't know that anybody wants to go back and think about this, but it's a challenge. You decide to deal with them and open them up. And so here comes the question of the humor. You decide to make a film that will be a comedy now. I associate comedy with something light and fun, but this is not. I think, what was the choice of comedy? What did it serve you for?
I think it's the best way to talk about painful and challenging issue. And I think through comedy, you can relate to people and to give them in one way, the heart motive of the film and this very painful memories. But on the other hand, to deal it with humor. And I think this dark humor is very common in people that born in Jerusalem and still alive, and young people. It's try to deal with humor with hard stuff. I think all my career I try to do this thing.
I think from my experience that dark humor, like what we call macabre jokes, are really part of Israeli culture. It's almost an instantaneous reaction of Israelis to crisis. Even with the corona, with the COVID, the first few weeks were all funny jokes, funny films about this.
I think it's an Israeli and Jewish way of dealing with suffer. I don't think it's only. I don't see myself only as an Israeli humor, but also a Jewish humor. That
Okay.
it's very dark and can be a lot of cynical jokes about things.
We'll go back to this when we talk about one of your scenes, because I'm interested in how you think humor helps as a coping mechanism, but let's go back to this in a little bit. Ronen, the lead character, not only wants to talk about the terror attacks, but the film gives us very clear hints that he himself is suffering from trauma, because
he suffers from post-trauma.
We see he wakes up in sweat. He's still, has the old newspaper clips. Does Ronen know that he is dealing with a long-term trauma? Is he fully aware of this?
I don't think so. I don't think he's aware of it. But through the film, I think he understands slowly that he have a problem, and I think he start and succeed to solve the problem in the end of the film. I think the end of the film is try to symbolize his overcome of the trauma.
Yeah.
Of leaving the Jerusalem and go to Eilat and go after his love.
And swimming without drowning.
Yeah.
Like in his dream. I'm interested about him not knowing about his trauma in one scene that kind of surprised me when I saw the film, when he's in love with Atia, he likes her. She prepares this nice breakfast for him. They've been together for a while. And he's not happy with the breakfast. He's in a bad mood because he just woke up from a nightmare. And she asks him, what's wrong? And he would not tell her. He would not tell her, even though she gets upset and leaves. Why doesn't he?
He blocked inside, in his personal life, he's blocked. He cannot talk about his feeling with Asia and with no one.
I was thinking of two options. Either he's not fully aware of this, or he feels that this is something to be ashamed of. This is my guessing of what's going on.
I don't think he's ashamed. I think he also is not a character of morning. It's the only time we see him in the morning. He don't.
Oh, I see. Okay. So he has a hard time waking up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So telephones. One of the exercises that Ronen gives the tourists is he gives them old phones and he says, please call someone you love and tell him that you're okay. And then later we hear that he himself, as a soldier, tried to call his father, who was in Machane Yehuda, the market, the shuk, at the time of a bombing, or he thought, and he was worried about him. Cell phones, the cell phone has a nice role in the film. It comes up again and again, and I was wondering about you, or the film, what is the role of phones, what is roles in Israeli society, in Israeli culture, the cell phones? I think there is something very Israeli about them.
I think it symbolized the period of time of 2000 that everybody got a phone, and it was something new that you can connect with people immediately. It's something new that symbolized the period of time that we're talking about, and it blend and mix in the period of time of terror attack that the exist of cellular phone becomes something that promote the anxiety.
Promotes anxiety.
We increase the anxiety that you know that the people is supposed to answer you in the same moment and it don't answer you. And it's something that double your anxiety because you try again and again to call him and you don't know if something happened or he just don't answer you.
This happens a lot between Ronen and his father. When every time the father calls, Ronen absolutely has to answer because
he feel anxiety that maybe something happened to his father. Maybe his father need him. That's why he feel that he have to answer.
He has to answer. I was thinking over the years, this is my take, it's maybe not, it's partially connected, that a lot of messages are passed through the phone, like Azaka, alarm, red alert. A lot of people have, and I haven't seen this in other places, news. Like you get constant feeding to the phone about what happened just 2 minutes ago. And people always look at the phone because they need to know whether they should know about something bad. I don't know.
Okay.
So there's another scene that I saw that kind of people who looked at the film picked up, and this is, of course, the scene at the bar with a group where Ronen explains the rule of behavior after a terror attack. And so when can you go out for a beer and when can you go out for a date? He says that going for a beer is patriotic.
Yeah.
Please explain.
In that period of time, to keep on doing what normal people do was a patriotic. And it's a kind of joke that to drinking a beer and to live your normal life becomes something that you don't let the terror win. It was one of the symbol and one of the line of that period of time to talk about that you don't give the terror change your life. But of course, it's changed your life because the beer is not the same beer when you're afraid that something bad happened.
There are a lot of rules. The film brings up a lot of rules. Ronen explained, actually, the rules that were developed at that time. Like, it's very important to ask how many people were killed and including or not including.
Terror attack. It's a joke. It's not something.
But it was real. But people really asked this, right? They really worried about it at the time.
It's like Woody Allen said that comedy is a tragedy plus time. That after years become comedies, become something weird, like why to ask it, what it's so important, the number. But that's what's make, like I said in the film, a special terror attack and a regular terror attack, because it's become part of the routine of the life here in Israel.
Right. I think even when, you have to go to a bar tonight, or Atia says to him, you know what, every time after a terror attack, I made myself go to Center City. Now, if you go to a bar, it's dangerous because this is what the terrorists were looking for, crowded, closed places. I know it made a lot of sense at the time, but I think this shows the absurdity of the situation, that what is normal in one time is so abnormal, really, but at the time it makes perfect sense. So you're in the situation completely. Today, when Israelis see the film, maybe, 15 years after?
Yes, 15 years after.
Yeah. Do you think they probably remember, those who are old enough, what they felt at the time? Do you think now, looking at it after 15 years through this kind of humor, will they laugh? Or?
No. In the screening that we had in Israel, people laughed a lot. It's touched them, and they laugh, and they felt really connect to the film. But they felt that it talk about their own experience. They understand the humor and the normal and not normal behavior of the society.
Okay, so in a way, using the humor, the black humor, you're hoping or you're thinking that it will change the lens through which people look at situations, right?
Yes.
In what way?
I think it's give the opportunity to laugh on a bad and tragic period of time. It's give you the opportunity to heal, to understand it's happened before, that the time passed, and it's give you the opportunity to see it in another eyes.
Is there something now that you want people to see about the second Intifada? I mean, I think you made your film for healing, and you use humor, but also and I'm also relating to other works that you do with Itamar Rose, your friend, and he's also your friend in the film, Simon. Were you hoping that they will see something about the second Intifada through the film, or maybe after the film, that they haven't seen until now? Like, you will make them think about something else?
There's one line in the film that
I talk about how the Israeli society become talking about revenge.
Right.
That this is one of the change in the Israeli society that it's important for me to talk about.
Okay.
And I think it's there's also one place that he talk about that we don't have a name for this period of time.
Excellent. I was going to ask you about it.
We call it the second Intifada, like we try, if you don't give a name to something, you try to forget it, to erase it.
There are a few other events in Israel, like Milchemet Lebanon and other, yeah, it's right. You're absolutely right. It's not something that maybe society remembers with pride. But let's talk about the change in attitude. Can you remind the scene that we're talking about, the two plaques?
We talk about the plaque from the 90s that it's written for the memorial of the people that died.
May they rest in peace.
May they rest in peace, in one hand, and can the Lord revenge their blood? And I think that the Israeli society become more evil in a way, and more don't see the other side because of the second Intifada. I think it's one of the places that were important for me to talk about.
Okay, let's talk about it. So you think that, I'll ask you in a different way. Do you think the Intifada has made Israeli society stronger or weaker?
Of course, weaker.
Weaker, why?
Because I think we don't have a faith in the Palestinian side. We try to erase the Palestinian side. We try to not see them. And also there were a couple of action of settlers that really hurt Palestinians. And I think that it's changed that today we don't see the Palestinians. Like from the second Intifada until now, we try to erase this problem.
Is it like a logic of like, you hurt me, so now I can hurt you and not feel bad about it? Is it something like this? Like, you hurt me in the Intifada, now, so...
Maybe. I don't have...
Yeah, you don't.
Maybe.
And do you think that happened? So we're talking about already something that began in the 90s, and also already in 2005 or 6, already the plaque has changed, right? The memorial plaque. Now we're about revenge, right?
Yes.
2020, where does Israeli society stand today?
I think today we just don't, we forgot about the Palestinians. We don't see them at all. We don't think about them. They're not in the mind of a lot of people, only a few.
Who would be those few?
I think left wings that really care about this problem of occupation and Palestinians. But even in the protest against the Prime Minister Netanyahu, it's more of talking about the Israeli problem and the Jewish problem, not the Palestinian problem.
If I'm correct, in the past 3 elections at least, this was not, maybe not on the table at all for the 2 main parties. Yes, for the...
You're right. In the last year, in the election, even Benny Gantz, supposedly the left didn't talk about the Palestinian problem, didn't, of course, didn't talk about the word peace or something like that.
No, I agree. I think that what will happen with, I don't even know how to call it. It depends on the political view, you know. Yehuda v'Shomron, Judea and Samaria, or some people call it the occupied territory. It's a political term. It's mostly on the table in the Abayit Yehudi, the more right, the national right, I would say, that have a very clear agenda as to what is going to happen with these areas and the population. You say that there isn't a name for it. Intifada is an Arabic name, second Intifada. What name would you give it if it was up to you? The government told you, Yossi, find a name for this period of time. What would you call it?
The civil war of Israel and Palestinians. Civil, because the war were in the street and between civilians and not soldier. It's a civil war, I think. Civil war. But I just, think about it now. I didn't think about it before. What name I can give it.
Yeah. With this, I'll say that they're not civilians of the same country, meaning it's not between citizens of the same country. So, but it's not it's not about the borders. It's not between soldiers, and it's not between two armies.
No,
it's between two people. It's between two people. I think that when the film tries to show the absurdity and the logic of the people trying to cope with this. We talked a little bit about this, like what seems so normal at the time, when you look at it later, it's abnormal, is a reflection of the absurdity of the situation. This is what I was thinking, because the victims are just accidental. They themselves did not do anything to these. It's a punishment for something they didn't do, besides being Israelis.
Yes, being Israelis and being in their own place, in their own time. Yes, I agree.
I think Black humor in general tries to deal with the senseless death.
Yes, a lot of dark humor related to death. In a lot of comedy, of dark comedy, it exists.
So the end of the film, we say, is kind of optimistic, right?
Yes, definitely optimistic.
Definitely optimistic.
Yeah, it was very important for me to end the film not in Jerusalem, not in the tour, in somewhere else. Maybe the opposite of Jerusalem. The beach in Eilat, it's the opposite of Jerusalem, and all the suffer from the tour go to this moment that, and the end of the film is something very important, because it gives you the feeling of how you go out from the theater after the film. And it was very important for me, the optimistic end, the optimistic end.
It takes almost a whole year of tours and almost the whole film for us, for Ronen to finally tell his personal story. A long time. He must have talked about it tens and tens of times in front of, and we see the gradual progression towards him. I like the scene when finally he lets the group go to the plaque nearest barrel, and he stays behind, and the group moves forward and they get out of focus, and we see him from the back, but we know it's difficult for him because he wipes his glasses. I thought this was a very, very telling scene about him, very emotional.
Thank you.
He needs a lot of courage to let them explore what he doesn't yet have the courage to explore. And this is this barrel. Atia helps him healing. I have to ask this because it's a romance. Where is Atia at the end of the film? Why is she not with him in the Dead Sea?
I think it's too much optimistic that he will see her in the Dead Sea. In one of the war that they meet in the water and kiss in the water, but also David Ofek and me felt that it's not the right ending for the film.
No, I agree, but no, kissing in the water is too much for me too. So Ronen healed. What about Israeli society? Are we there? Is it a fantasy? What?
It's a fantasy. I think the Israeli society didn't heal from the second Intifada, and we can see it also in the election, and also in the disappear of the Palestinian problem. But this is the role of the culture and of art to start talk about things that people don't want to talk about or don't want to memory. To talk about it with humor. It's part of the healing.
Amen. So my last question to you, what is your next project?
I don't know yet. I try to write it these days, and I hope I will succeed to do something it's not easy with the coronavirus and all the changing. It's not easy to focus in one project, a new project.
Are you
But
doing more of these satirical, I don't know how to call them, I guess, satirical pieces with Itamar?
No, we stopped it 10 years ago to do it, but we
Okay.
did a lot. I'm proud of this film.
I know. Do you want to give the viewers the link? I mean, they are in English too. You can find them on YouTube, right?
You can find them on YouTube. You can write Yossi and Itamar on YouTube and find the really short satirical documentary videos that we did, I don't know, 10 years ago, and I will be happy that you watch them.
Okay, so we let the people know. So I want to thank you, Yossi, and the viewers who are watching us. I want to invite.
I want to thank you. Yes?
Thank you.
I want to thank you about the interesting conversation, and to all the audience that watch the film and your festival, and it's an honor to be in this festival.
Excellent. It's a very, I think, not only very good film, but an important film about Israeli society. So thank you for making it, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.